If there's one thing I've held onto tightly through every chapter of my life, from small town India to global red carpets, it's this curiosity, that hunger to know more, to understand something new, to ask questions even when you don't have all the answers. That's not just a habit, it's a superpower. I've never been the smartest person in the room, but I've always been the most curious, and that has made all the difference. When I first stepped into the world of beauty pageants at 17, I was terrified. I didn't know how to walk in heels, I didn't understand the way the industry worked, and I certainly didn't have any professional training. But I was curious, I watched, I learned, I asked questions. I listened to the people around me and soaked in everything like a sponge. That curiosity didn't just prepare me for the Miss World stage, it transformed me into someone who could rise to the occasion, even when I felt completely out of place. Years later, when I decided to take on Hollywood, there were so many unknowns. The culture was different, the process was different. I had to prove myself all over again, but my curiosity became my anchor. I didn't pretend to know everything. I sat down and learned how auditions worked, how American TV was shot, how to find my voice in a new space. I even took dialect coaching to neutralize my accent, not because I was ashamed of it, but because I was curious about how to stretch my instrument as an actor and fit into roles that weren't written for someone like me. Curiosity allows you to adapt, it makes you resilient, it opens doors you didn't even know existed. You see, the world is constantly changing. Whether you're a student, an entrepreneur, an artist, or just trying to figure out what's next in life, if you stop learning, you stop growing. But when you lead with curiosity, every situation becomes an opportunity. A rejection becomes a lesson, a failure becomes a case study. A challenge becomes a chance to evolve, and here's the beautiful thing. Curiosity doesn't require perfection. It doesn't ask you to know it all. In fact, it thrives when you admit you don't. It makes space for humility, for vulnerability, for growth. It gives you permission to start over again and again without shame. So many people are afraid to ask questions because they think it makes them look weak or inexperienced. I completely disagree. Some of the strongest people I know are the ones who never stop asking why. And how? They're the ones who lean in even when they feel unsure. They're the ones who go further because they dare to keep learning, keep exploring, keep reaching. That's what curiosity does. It takes you from where you are to where you could be. In a world that often tells you to have all the answers, I want to tell you something different. It's okay not to know. It's powerful to want to know. Be the person who asks. Be the one who listens. Be the one who's willing to learn even when it's uncomfortable. Because in that space, the quiet moments of exploration and discovery, you unlock something far greater than knowledge. You unlock possibility. You unlock purpose. You unlock power. So if you want to grow, if you want to evolve, if you want to unlock your true potential, start by being curious. Every single day. That's where greatness begins. If there's one truth life has taught me over and over again, it's this: failure will teach you more than success ever can. And I'm not just saying that to sound wise or inspirational. I'm saying it because I've lived it. There have been moments in my life when everything I touched turned to gold. The wins were big, the applause was loud, and the spotlight was bright. But strangely, those weren't the moments that shaped me the most. The moments that truly carved out my character, that pushed me to evolve, that forced me to face who I really was, those came in the quiet, difficult spaces of failure. I've had films that didn't work, projects that flopped, decisions that backfired. I've walked out of meetings where I knew I didn't make the impression I wanted to. I've had days when I questioned whether I still belonged, whether I was still good enough. But each of those moments taught me something. Something real, something valuable, something that success with all its glitter couldn't teach me. See, when you succeed, you celebrate, you move forward, you bask in the result, and that's beautiful. Of course, we should celebrate our victories. But success doesn't always ask you to reflect. It doesn't demand change. It doesn't push you out of your comfort zone. Failure does all of that and more. When you fail, you're forced to pause, to reflect. To ask yourself hard questions. What went wrong? What can I do better next time? Did I prepare enough? Did I trust myself? Was I afraid? And when you answer those questions honestly, you begin to grow. You don't grow just from the fall, you grow from how you rise. I remember a point early in my career when things weren't going well. I had done a couple of films that didn't perform the way I'd hoped. The critics weren't kind, and neither was my own self-talk. But that time in my life forced me to reevaluate not just my choices, but my mindset. I began choosing roles that scared me, that stretched me. I stopped playing it safe. I dug deeper into my craft, took more control over my decisions, and slowly started to rediscover my voice. That failure didn't break me, it redirected me, and when I entered Hollywood, let me tell you, it wasn't easy. I was starting from zero in a whole new world. I faced rejection, typecasting, uncertainty. There were so many no's before there was even one yes. But every no became a lesson. Every door that closed taught me where to knock next. I learned what I stood for, what I wouldn't compromise, and how to build something that lasted. Here's what I want you to remember. Failure is not the opposite of success, it's part of it. Every successful person you admire has failed. Probably more times than they'll ever admit. The difference is, they didn't quit, they learned, they adapted, and they kept going. So don't fear failure, embrace it, let it humble you, let it sharpen you. Let it teach you what you're truly capable of, because when you survive failure, and you will, you come out the other side stronger, wiser, more focused. Success might make you feel good, but failure makes you great. And that greatness is not handed to you. It's built, one lesson, one heartbreak, one setback at a time. So fall, get back up, and fall again. That's how you rise, not just to the top, but to your fullest, most powerful self. One of the greatest lessons I've learned in life is this: don't limit yourself to just one lane. The world is too big, your potential is too vast, and your talents are far too layered for you to be defined by just one thing. If you want to unlock your true self, you have to diversify what you learn. People often ask me, how did you go from being Miss World to a Bollywood star, to an international actress, producer, singer, entrepreneur, activist, and now a mother? The answer is simple. I never allowed myself to be boxed in. I kept learning new skills, new roles, new industries, and new versions of myself. The truth is, we're not born to fit neatly into one label. You don't have to be just a student, or just a doctor, or just an artist. You can be a combination of everything that interests you. But to do that, you have to be open to learning across disciplines. You have to let curiosity guide you into unfamiliar spaces, and be brave enough to start as a beginner again and again. When I tried my hand at singing and signed with an international music label, I knew I was stepping into something entirely new. I had no formal training, I wasn't sure how it would be received, and yes, some people questioned the move. But I didn't do it to prove a point. I did it because I wanted to grow. I wanted to learn, and that experience taught me so much, not just about music, but about the global entertainment business, branding, and collaboration across cultures. The same thing happened when I started my production company, Purple Pebble Pictures. I didn't know everything about producing films, but I educated myself. I surrounded myself with experts. I studied storytelling from a new lens. I learned how to tell meaningful regional stories in India, films that may not have had big budgets but had big hearts. Those lessons, that mindset, helped me expand not just my career, but my sense of purpose. When you diversify what you learn, you build depth, you gain confidence, you discover passions you didn't even know existed. You become more adaptable, more creative, and more prepared for life's unpredictability. And here's something else: learning different things makes you more empathetic. It teaches you to see the world from multiple perspectives. When I began working with UNICEF, I had to educate myself about issues like child marriage, poverty, education, inequality, not from the comfort of headlines, but from first-hand stories. That learning transformed not just how I spoke, but how I acted. It reminded me that knowledge has to move us into action. I believe the most interesting, successful, and fulfilled people are those who are constantly evolving. They're unafraid to pivot. They say yes to new challenges. They take a dance class even if they've got two left feet. They read books outside their comfort zone. They ask questions in rooms where they don't have all the answers. So whether you're just starting out or feel like you've hit a plateau, I challenge you to shake things up. Learn something that scares you. Dive into a new language, a new skill, a new perspective. You never know which piece of knowledge will become the spark that changes everything. Because in a world that is constantly changing, being one-dimensional is a risk. But being versatile, that's your advantage. Don't wait for permission. Give yourself the freedom to explore. Be a student of the world. Diversify what you learn, and watch how powerfully you begin to show up. Not just in your career, but in your life. There's a kind of learning that goes deeper than books, degrees, or job titles. It doesn't come from teachers or textbooks. It comes from experience, from stillness, from discomfort, from self-reflection. It's the hardest, most important kind of education you'll ever get, and that is the journey to learn who you are when you're young, or even not so young. There are 1,000 voices telling you who to be. Parents, society, social media, friends, even well-meaning mentors. Everyone has an opinion about what you should do, how you should act, what your timeline should look like. And if you're not careful, you can live an entire life trying to meet everyone else's expectations while ignoring your own truth. For the longest time, I believed I had to keep proving myself to the world. To show I belonged, to show I was enough, and that drive pushed me. It made me achieve things I'm incredibly proud of, but it also distracted me from tuning inwards. I was so busy becoming who everyone else needed me to be, I forgot to ask, who am I when the applause stops? Who am I when I'm not being watched? Who am I when it's just me alone, without the titles, the makeup, the spotlight? The answers didn't come quickly, but they came. And let me tell you, learning who you are is not always pretty. You have to confront your insecurities, you have to face your flaws, you have to admit the ways you've held yourself back, you have to acknowledge that sometimes you've dimmed your own light to make other people more comfortable. That's not easy, but it's necessary, because once you start to understand yourself, your values, your boundaries, your desires, you begin to live from a place of strength instead of survival. You start to make decisions not to impress others, but to honor yourself. You stop apologizing for taking up space. Learning who you are doesn't mean having all the answers. It means being honest about the questions. It means sitting with your fears long enough to understand them. It means recognizing your triggers, your patterns, your passions, and your purpose. When I stepped into the international entertainment industry, I was suddenly surrounded by people who didn't know my work, didn't know my culture, and in many cases didn't know how to place me. It could have been easy to mold myself into someone I thought they wanted me to be, but I had already done the inner work. I knew who I was, I knew where I came from, I knew what I stood for, and that self-awareness became my anchor in a sea of unfamiliarity. It's not a one-time process. You don't find yourself once and that's it. Life changes you, you grow, you evolve. The key is to keep checking in with yourself, keep asking the hard questions, keep listening to your intuition. Keep unlearning what no longer serves you. The more you know yourself, the harder it is for the world to shake you. Trends can't confuse you, rejection can't destroy you, and success can't define you. Because your identity isn't rooted in what you do, it's rooted in who you are. And once you truly know who that person is, you become unstoppable. You stop looking for validation and start walking in purpose. You stop chasing someone else's dream and start building your own legacy. So don't be afraid to look within. That's where your real power lies. Learn who you are deeply, honestly, fearlessly, because the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. And when you truly know you, everything else starts to fall into place. Education isn't something that ends with a diploma or a graduation ceremony. It's not confined to 4 walls, a textbook, or a deadline. If you really want to grow, if you want to evolve into the most powerful, aware, and impactful version of yourself, you have to make education a daily habit. Let me be clear. I don't mean you need to enroll in a formal course every week or get a new degree every year. What I'm talking about is the mindset of constant learning. It's about waking up every day and asking yourself, what can I learn today that I didn't know yesterday? The truth is, the world is changing so fast, industries are evolving, technology is advancing, conversations are shifting. If you're not learning, you're falling behind, and more importantly, you're robbing yourself of the chance to unlock all the layers of your own potential. There was a time early in my career when I was working non-stop, film after film, city after city. On the surface, I was winning, but I realized I was moving fast without taking the time to really grow. I was doing a lot, but learning very little. That realization hit me hard, so I changed things. I started reading again. I started asking questions on set instead of just sticking to what I already knew. I made time to observe, to reflect, to absorb, and that shift changed everything, not just professionally, but personally too. Making education a daily habit doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as simple as reading an article that challenges your thinking, watching a documentary that broadens your understanding of a culture, a conflict, or a cause, listening to someone with a different opinion and instead of reacting, really hearing them, taking 5 minutes to journal what you learned that day and how it changed you. Every single day offers you a chance to learn, if you're paying attention. The most successful people I've met across industries, from business to entertainment to activism, share one common trait: they're all students of life. They don't pretend to know it all. In fact, they constantly surround themselves with people who can teach them more. They ask questions, they stay curious, they read, they reflect, and they adapt. And here's the most important part. When you make learning a habit, you don't just grow smarter, you grow stronger. You become more resilient because education helps you handle uncertainty. It helps you make better choices. It sharpens your instincts and deepens your empathy. It gives you the tools to think critically, act wisely, and lead with confidence. Let me also say this. If you've been told that you're too old to learn something new, or that it's too late to change careers, or that people like you don't get to sit at certain tables, and learn that lie. Every day is a fresh start. Every day is a classroom, and every person, no matter where they're from or what stage of life they're in, has the right and the ability to learn. You don't need to wait for permission. You just need to decide that growth is a priority, and once you do, you'll see how every conversation, every challenge, even every mistake becomes a lesson. So challenge yourself to make learning as regular as brushing your teeth. Feed your mind the way you feed your body. Be disciplined about it. Be intentional, because the more you learn, the more you grow, and the more you grow, the closer you get to the most powerful, capable version of yourself. Make education a daily habit, not for anyone else, but for you, because you are your greatest investment, and trust me, you're worth every lesson. Knowledge is power, yes, but power means nothing if you keep it to yourself. The real value of learning isn't just what it does for you, it's what it allows you to do for others. That's the difference between personal success and meaningful impact. When you use what you learn to lift others, you don't just grow, you multiply growth. Throughout my life and career, I've had access to incredible opportunities. I've learned from brilliant people, worked across industries and continents, and seen the power of education, awareness, and resilience up close. But somewhere along the way, I realized that if all that learning only served me, then I was missing the point entirely. What good is knowledge if it doesn't open doors for someone else? What's the use of experience if it doesn't create space for someone coming behind you? The truth is, every single lesson life teaches you, every success, every failure, every hard-earned insight is a tool, and tools are meant to be used, shared, passed down. When I started my production company, one of my biggest goals was to tell stories that wouldn't otherwise be told. Regional Indian films, underrepresented voices, new talent. I wasn't just producing for the sake of expanding my brand. I was using what I'd learned in the global industry to make a path for others who deserved a spotlight. Because I knew first, and what it felt like to not be seen. I knew how hard it could be to break through, and I wanted to change that narrative for someone else. Lifting others doesn't always have to be grand or public. Sometimes it's a quiet conversation, a word of encouragement, or simply sharing what you know with someone who hasn't had the same access. It's mentoring a young woman just entering your field. It's giving honest feedback. It's opening up about your fail, so others don't feel so alone in theirs. And here's the beautiful irony: the more you give, the more you grow. When you teach someone else what you've learned, it deepens your own understanding. When you lift others, you rise too, but you rise with purpose, with intention, with soul. There's a kind of legacy we all leave behind, and it's not built on awards or headlines. It's built on the people we impact. The people we empower, the people we believe in before they even believe in themselves. You don't have to be famous or rich or accomplished to do this. You just have to care. If you've learned how to navigate a difficult system, teach someone else the map. If you've developed a skill, help someone else refine theirs. If you've broken a barrier, break it wider for the next person. When you use your knowledge to lift others, you become part of a ripple effect, one that moves beyond you, that outlives you. You create a chain reaction of empowerment, and the world needs more of that. We live in a time where it's easy to focus on individual wins, but true greatness lies in collective uplift, in looking around and saying, "Who else can I bring with me?" That's not weakness, that's leadership. So keep learning, keep growing, but never forget to reach back. Be the mentor you wish you had. Be the guide, the cheerleader, the open door. Use your story to fuel someone else's hope. Use your wisdom to illuminate someone else's path. Because when you rise and you bring others with you, that's not just success, that's significance, and significance, that's what lasts.